All right. So tonight I have with me Zoie Seay. Is that how you pronounce it?
See, like the
The ocean. Okay. So Zoie Seay, who is the author of the book The Luckiest Child, Becoming a Blended Family. Um,
yes.
how are you doing this evening, Zoe?
I'm doing pretty good. Had a long day, but doing pretty good.
So Zoe had reached out to us. My name is Jeff Steiner. I'm the executive director of the Dad's Resource Center, and we provide education resources and advocacy for single fathers. We're founded by Dr. Joel N. Myers, who is the founder and CEO of AccuWeather. And I've been the executive director since 2017. One of the things we're trying to do is have a little bit more of a video presence. And we're starting to do interviews like these with folks. So when Zoe had reached out to us, I thought this seems like a really neat opportunity. We can get a perspective where we're normally coming from is fathers who are trying to be in the lives of their children and can't, and that story. But this gives us the opportunity to speak to someone kind of from a different perspective with separated families. And so I thought this would be it's a children's book, and that's nice. And it's important to help the children, right? That's what it's all about with all of these kinds of things. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I thought it would be good to talk to Zoe here this evening. So I guess to get us going a little bit here, Zoe, can you share a little bit about yourself and your background?
So as you said, my name is Zoie Seay. I have been a stepmom for a little over 5 years. I have an amazing 7-year-old stepson. I do not have any biological children of my own yet. Um, I have worked with kids for 15 plus years. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I've worked with kids as young as 2 years old, all the way up until 18 years old, in many different ways. I've worked in the classroom as a teacher. I've worked as a behavioral tech, working with kids that are on the spectrum or have SPED needs or neurodiverse children. I've coached. I just truly enjoy working with children. And so I wrote this book in last year, and I published it in December. And we can get into the background of that later. But and I currently live in Northern Virginia, and I was born and raised here, lived here my whole life. Yeah.
So the whole author thing, had you been thinking about writing a book, and or is this just something that just popped up and said, hey, I think I should write a book about this?
Believe it or not, no. And I've said this before, like if you had sent myself back in time like a year and a half ago and you were like, yeah, you wrote a book, I'd be like, you're lying, there's no way. Like, never thought that I'd ever write a children's book, but I saw that there was a need. And because of my own family, and my stepson asked me one day, he was like, he had read like Daddy and Me books and Mommy and Me books and Grandma and Grandpa and Me books and things like that. But he asked me one day after reading a Mommy and Me book, he was like, where's the book that represents us? Where's the book that represents our family? And that's, me, him, and his dad. And so I was like, you know what? He's like, could you find a book like that? I said, you know what? I can certainly try. And I knew there were books out there, but I hadn't really looked truly into them. And I came across a lot of books that either they were relatively the same, where the blended family is explaining what a blended family is, or the step parent is not mentioned, or there's none with stepdads. They're like rare, there's like few and far between with stepdads, or not unrealistic, but less relatable than people nowadays, where the child was sat down and told that their parents are getting a divorce. Unfortunately, nowadays, that's not really how it happens. A lot of people were never married, and they just went their separate ways. Sometimes it's an ugly, it looks ugly the way that it happened. And then sometimes everything's okay. And so I wanted to create a book. I was like, there's a real need for this. And I really wanted to create a book that would provide a provide a tool to parents and children. Because a lot of times, majority, more often than not, divorce is very difficult on children. And there's too many times where parents don't have the tools to help their child, or it's immediate therapy. I'm not saying that therapy is bad or putting them in counseling or anything like that is bad, but sometimes you do want to try it at your own hand to help your own children. And I wanted to, when I decided to write this book, I wanted to write a book where the parents can have an easy doorway to get their children to open up, to explain how they're feeling. Because another unfortunate situation. Can you hear me?
I can now, yes. Yep.
Sorry. A lot of children do not have the resources or the words. They don't have the skill to communicate how they're feeling inside.
Yep.
And so it is up to us as parents, as their parents, as adults, to give them those tools. And so that's what this book is. This book provides children with a way to help them open up and talk about their worries and their concerns and how they're feeling at that current time, without being felt like they're put on the spot to talk about their feelings.
That's really extraordinary. You've put a lot of thought into this. And I can tell you, the world that we live in, when there's a separation or a divorce, the focus is always on the parents.
Yes.
It's never on the children.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like, and it's important, and we need to start to look at it through the eyes of the children, much more like you are doing here with this.
Thank you.
So, side note, so there's some really good, the pictures are really great in this.
Thank you.
Who did you did you do those, or did you collaborate with someone to do that?
I wish. I wish, but no. I reached out to, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups for children's book authors, self-publishing, because I self-published this book. I did not do the traditional route. And I reached out, and this group has illustrators in there. And I was like, I'm looking for an illustrator for my children's book. This is what I'm looking for. The characters are bears. Who can help me? And so I looked at well over 100 different illustrators to try to figure out which would be the best fit. And I came across Ravin Kaur. She actually lives in India. Her and her husband, Kamal, does the formatting and she does the illustrating. And so there's a lot of different ways how people figure out their illustrations for their books. Some authors, they have illustration notes, and basically telling what they want to put in the picture, and the illustrator draws it. Or sometimes the author just gives them the book and they say, show me what you got. And I was the side of, I knew what I wanted my pictures to look like. And so I had illustration notes. She just had the style of illustration, and then she followed what I wanted for my illustrations.
So you put thought even into what the illustrations would be. You just didn't turn that over and hope for the best.
I couldn't. It's my first book. I was very nervous. I really couldn't. And I knew, so The Luckiest Child is going to be a series.
Right.
So I needed to make sure that it's going to work through the series. And I was just like, I needed to make sure, because nobody else knows what the other books are going to be about except for me. So I couldn't have the illustrator do what they wanted and then it not work when I go off to another book. So yes, I did. I was very particular about my illustrations.
So I guess that was a question I had too, was looking at your materials and all your information. Do you know in your mind, like how many more books are going to be and what the theme of them are going to be? And
So there will be at least 4 more books. At least 4 more books. I started off from the beginning, becoming a blended family, starting off. And then there will be another book that will be going from an only child to now having siblings, being an only child to now having a younger sibling and an older sibling. So there's that one, and then there is going to be a book on loving more than just their bio parents. So the struggles that children face with loving another parent that's not their mother and father. There will be another book that is for foster care. This will all be, it's all the Luckiest Child series, so it'll all be under the Luckiest Child, and then the subtitle be what it is. So it'll be foster book for foster kids, and then a book that is for adoption. And then there is going to be another book, which I'm figuring out if I'm going to do it in this series or if I'm going to do another one. It is on blended families, but it's from the perspective. The book is told from this perspective of the child that's in the family, and he's telling his friend who doesn't know what a blended family is. So it's a great book when your child is nervous about, he's like, my friend's parents aren't divorced, they're together, like what, like, or their worries and things like that, or if you're trying to explain that to another child, this is a great book that it goes through the questions. He's like, so you have a stepmom? What's a stepmom? Explains what that is. Or a stepdad, what is that? And what the child, originally they were going to be real, like human being characters. But I'm not sure. I might stick it in the Luckiest Child series. I'm not exactly sure. But that is one book that is, I'm not sure where it's going to go, but it is already written. But I think it's really good because it's literally just the boy and his friend and his stepmom you see in the background. And it's going to be a stepmom one, and then there's going to be a stepdad one. And it'll be the same book, but you get to pick which one is pertaining to your situation, like that. So,
well, that's next level, actually giving voice to what the viewpoint or the experience of the stepchild is.
yes, because I want to make sure that the whole goal is to help children, provide them with a tool that helps them during this situation. They're during this very large change in their life, and that at that current point in their life, it's not going away. So instead of avoiding it, they need to be able to deal with it, and they need to be able to express to their loved ones, their parents, how they're feeling. And this particular book is, yes, it has a stepmom in it, but it's mainly, it takes place at the dad's house. And it's talking about how it's just us boys. It's been just us boys. What do you mean you guys are getting married? And all the different worries that they feel inside. And parents are sometimes when they get divorced, sometimes they spoil their children because they just want to make them happy and they don't want to set them off in any sort of way. Then there's the other side where they just try to cover it up and not talk about it. If they avoid it, then they're not forcing their child to talk about it, not realizing what's brewing inside of them. And in the back of this book, is 3 pages of activities for the whole family to do together, and ask questions and hear from, and gives parents, so you can actually hear from the kids in your family. Even though this book is for 4 to 9-year-olds, you may not sit and read this with like a 10 or 12-year-old just because of the pictures, but the book itself is good when you want them. It kind of helps you figure out a way to approach those children. And then even if they come, the older kids come at the end of the book and you guys do the group activity at the end, can be helpful.
Yeah, that's always good to have those things at the end of the book, the process through and build off of what the book has led you into or given you the opportunity to work on. So, and you actually did something though, which was one of my questions, and that is a step parent looking at your situation specifically, and then having that personal experience, seeing it with other people who are going through some of these things. What are your observations of what works and what doesn't work for natural parents in these types of situations?
What you had said originally, which is making it about the kids, it is all about the children. Every decision you make is about the children. I say these main 2 things, and to my people that I've talked to that are on the process of getting a divorce or anything of that nature, my advice to them is these 2 things, these main 2 things. One, the moment that you guys go your separate ways, decide to go your separate ways, whether it is because somebody cheated on somebody, you don't trust each other anymore, you just don't like each other anymore, you're not happy anymore, you've come to terms with the reality that you are a homosexual in any sort of way, whatever it may be, get off your chest whatever you need to say. If you get the opportunity, say whatever you need to say to your soon-to-be ex. Get it off your chest. Whether they listen to it, whether they hear it, whether they agree with it, disagree with it, whatever it may be, get it out. If you have a chance, get it out. Turns into an argument, whatever. But once that is done,
Okay, yeah.
that's it. Like let it go, because no matter what, you're no longer together. Whatever happened before, but while you were together, is no more. You decided to separate because of that, whatever that reason was. Say whatever you need to say, get it off your chest so that you're not thinking, well, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have said this. Or you're jabbing them with it years after you're divorced, when it's like, we're no longer together. Why does that matter? If they cheated on you, okay, you're, as unfortunate as that is, I'm not trying to sound insensitive, but as unfortunate as that situation is, if somebody was to cheat on you, no matter what, you chose to leave based on that. Now, which now brings me to my second advice that I always state, is you are now functioning as a business, and the business is your child. Every decision that you make should be about the child, whether you're parallel parenting, which a lot of people frown upon parallel parenting, which if it works for your family, if that's what works for your situation, then that is what you need to do. If co-parenting works best, then great. But when people, which I don't agree with, when people who co-parent shame people who parallel parent, I'm like, you never know the situation. Everybody's situation is different. Co-parenting works. That's great that you got to a level where you can co-parent. But if you're dealing with somebody who wants everything to be their way, or everything has to go through them, that doesn't work, which means now when you guys function, you need to, again, still functioning as a business, you are just 2 separate franchises working on the same thing.
Shared interest, the shared interest.
Exactly. Yes. So if you are If you are, and women, naturally, we are a lot more emotional than men are. Not saying that men are not emotional, but naturally, the way we're made, we are a lot more emotional. And we have, I would say, a more difficult time either letting things go and moving on, or, you know, I see it more with women than I do with men that I have interacted with that don't make it about the kids. Your children are not objects that you get to bargain with. It is not, it's about what is best for them. And if they owe you $1,000, whatever, like you, before you got divorced, you want them to pay you back. Oh, well, you're not seeing them until, why? What does me owing you $1,000 have anything to do with me parenting my child? Nothing, nothing at all. It is separate. And when you jab at them or try to hurt them by keeping away, by using the child to do that, you're hurting your child. And I say this too, you eventually, as depending on when your divorce happened, if your children are younger, where they're easily manipulated, you know, it's going to come out which parent was the true problem. You, more often than not, it is going to come out which person is the problem. Now, there are high conflict partners that you come across, who are literally, their goal is, it seems like their entire goal is to be a high conflict person and cause drama every chance they get. Don't allow it in your space. If every time you get your kids, it is high conflict and they're picking fights with you, don't play. Don't play their game. They're playing a game with you. They are trying to ruin your time with your child. Don't let it. There's nothing that says you have to talk to them. If they want to communicate with you, or if it's not about the children, that's it. There's no need to, if no child is in danger, there's no need. Enjoy your time with your child because you deserve to enjoy your time with your child, and be respectful. Don't have a double standard where you don't like them doing it to you, but then you turn around and do it to them. Then you have it coming. You can't, it's two wrongs don't make a right. No, but you can't get mad at them for doing something that you're doing yourself. So those are my main two things I would say is, you're now functioning as a business, and every decision that you make, regardless of how it makes you feel, go scream in a pillow, go kickboxing, go to the gym to get that anger out, or just let it go, because at the end of the day, it's about what makes them happy. If your child is happy, if you're and they are safe, if they are happy and they are safe, then regardless of how it feels when they are not at your house, let it go. Let it go. You are going to drive yourself crazy and ruin your own time with your child. And I guarantee you, at some point in time, your anger, you're allowing some of that to bleed onto your child, just because that's where your mindset is right now at that time. You got to let it go. Got to let it go.
Well, a couple things. First off, that's what I say is, well, there are 3 stages of separation. The initial reorganization, where you got to figure out where the children are going to be, when, and how they're going to be supported, like the basic fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
But the in-between phase is co-parenting. And that's when you got to figure out how to make it work. And
Yes.
that's where people get hung up. And I think some of the things you're alluding to are the personal issues. Like, if you can't let go of that other person, you're going to get caught up in this negative feedback. And the
Yes.
problem is, well, I'll get around that because that's another question. But to your point about parallel parenting, there's a whole lot worse dysfunction than parallel parenting. Like, if
Absolutely.
and I know a lot of fathers that if they could just be a parallel parenting, everyone would be happier. But somehow it's sometimes it's out of your hand if the other person is just that far gone, to make even that impossible. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. And I guess the other question again is then, to take a little different look at it is, what works for the children from your perspective as a step parent? What works for the children, and then what is, I think you've mentioned some of these things, but what is problematic for the children when you have a separated family and you're trying to move into a blended family or two different blended families?
I would say one is they're worrying about the parent and how they feel. And what if that goes with having a step parent or not having a step parent as well. Like, okay, I go to mom's house, or excuse me, I'm about to leave mom's house to go to dad's house. And mom, right before I leave her house, she tells me how much she's going to miss me and how she wishes that I didn't have to go to dad's house, guilt tripping the children before they leave the other parent. There's nothing wrong with saying you miss your kids. I miss my stepson when he's not here. We do week on, week off. I miss him when he's not here. But when he goes over to his mom's, I say to him, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to miss you, or I hope you have a great time. Encourage them to be happy. Don't guilt trip them into wanting to come back to your house. And, they are going to miss you when you're gone, but they need, when they're not at your house, whatever parent they're not with, they're going to miss them. But when they feel guilt for missing that other parent, it's our job as their parents to explain to them, it is okay to miss your other parent and you don't have to feel bad. And that's something we dealt with here. He was like, oh, I'm going to miss you. I'm so sad. You're going to miss me when I'm gone, or mom really misses me when I'm gone. And we didn't have the guilt issue, but it was something that he just felt naturally all by himself. So where parents are pushing that on the children, they don't need help in that department. They don't, because naturally they love and care about their parents. So they want what's best for them. They put that weight on themselves. So, encourage them to have a good time, because that means they understand, tell them that you're going to miss them when they're gone, but encourage them. That means that they don't have that. It's like, oh, it's okay for me to have fun at dad's house. It's okay for me to have fun when I'm at mom's house. It helps them be okay. So having them understand that that they are also not responsible for mommy and daddy's feelings. When you talk poorly about the other parent or the other step parent, when you talk poorly about them in front of the child, you are teaching them how to treat them. You are potentially teaching them how to treat that person. And no matter what, no matter how you're feeling, you can be mad at the world. You could be mad that you asked, say for instance, you asked your ex if you could, hey, I'm going to take them. You didn't ask them, but you said, I'm going to take them to this baseball game on my day. And they're like, I really don't want you to take them. At the end of the day, the choice is theirs. They're not asking your permission. They're letting you know, hey, we're going to go to this baseball game. And then he takes them, and then you get super mad. And then turn what was a wonderful situation, wonderful moment, wonderful experience into something negative just because you did it, whatever your reasoning is. You didn't want him to go, and now you have ruined that moment for him and made them feel bad. So now, next time it's an opportunity for them to go, they're like, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to do that, because they don't want to relive. They want the fun moment, but they don't want to relive the negativity that came after it. So they choose not to do it at all. If you are upset or whatever it may be about them going, if you want to voice that to your ex, then okay, voice it to them, whatever it may be, and then let it go. Or at the end of the day, they don't have to listen to it. But never do it in front of the children. It's inappropriate. It's unnecessary for them to hear it. It is when they see you two interacting, knowing that you're separate, they should see that my mom and dad, even though are no longer together, even though they don't think like this, but when they grow up and they look back, you want them to look at, no matter what, my parents did what was best for me. They, you know, it should look like everything is fine between the two of you when they see you two in the same room. And that's something like we all four of us, me and my stepson and his mom and Zach, we all do a family game night every month. Now, some months we miss just because of, life gets in the way, but we do a family game night. We could be mad as all get out at each other, just argue 10 minutes prior. But when whoever steps through, because they usually come over here, when she steps through the door or when we step through the door, whenever we come together and we're in the same room, you would never know it. In
Excellent.
his eyes, everybody is good to go. And that's how it should be.
Right.
And that doesn't always work out for everybody. I'm not saying, oh, well, how on earth do I get to that point? It takes time to get to that point, but it works very well. And it helps us. It really does. Because at the end of the day, we calm ourselves down. We, whatever we were mad at, sometimes we just let it go. We forget about it. We genuinely all laugh together. We have a genuinely good time. We eat dinner and we play board games, and he absolutely loves it. It takes time to get to that point. Yes, that only happened within less than a year. I've been a stepmom for 5 years. We've been together for 6. It's, it takes time to get to that point.
Yep.
So I would say one of the keys is do not rush. Do not rush trying to make your child feel okay with the situation.
Right.
Do not rush them. You need to also be an opening soundboard for them. Look at their behavior. If they're acting out differently than they usually do, you can't just approach it how you usually do. You can't just yell at them and, be mad at what they did or how they did it or whatever it may be. First, you need to figure out the reasoning behind the behavior, not just reacting to the behavior. And that's what I would say is the major thing. Not realizing, it's a big change in their life. And again, children don't always have the resources and tools to express themselves and tell how they're feeling. So what do? They lash out or they break down. And that can look like tantrums. That can look like I'm never talking to you again. That can look like the act of everything's fine, but you can tell something's wrong. But because they're not talking about it to you, you're like, okay, I don't have to talk about it. You have to feel, you're the one that should feel uncomfortable, not your child. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable to talk to your child about the feelings, that is not their issue. That's your own. And you need to fix that within yourself. Because you are the one, you want to be a soundboard. You want your children to know that they can talk to you about anything and everything. And that is one of my major goals with my stepson and when I have bio kids for myself. No matter how hard it is, no matter how difficult the situation may be, I want you to understand that you can talk to me about anything and there will be no judgment. I'm not saying that you'll never get in trouble, but I am always here for you. I will always be honest with you. I will always tell you advice that has your best interest at heart. And Jackson, my stepson, he knows that 100%. He talks to me about everything. We are very close. And I think when parents get to the point, instead of trying to avoid talking about how their kids are feeling just because they're like, oh, I don't want them to yell, I don't want them to be crying, let them cry. What you don't want them to do is bottle up their feelings, and then because you're creating a beast later on that it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to I don't want to say control, but to deal with. It is important for children to have a soundboard and to know that there is a safe place for them to talk about how they're feeling. And it gets harder when children are teenagers. That's a different beast within itself. But when it comes to the younger children, communication is key. But getting mad at them because they're lashing out at you, getting mad at them because they threw something against the wall or they marked on the wall when they never ever did anything like that before, they're acting completely out of character. You can, like, then you need to figure out what is the underlying cause of that behavior, and that is what is most important for um, for people to realize about their children, is that you get so caught up in trying to react to the behavior instead of figuring out what that cause is, so that behavior stops. You just address the behavior, more than likely it's going to happen again, more than once. So
So that's a good distinction. Younger children don't think in a linear fashion. That's what you're saying, you know.
yep.
And um, so when you're a parent or a step parent, and you have to work with them, you gotta, you gotta work and get at it in different ways. You
That
gotta have
takes
an
time.
intuitiveness and be able to pick up on it yourself.
Mhm.
But they're just not going to talk to you like, oh, well, this is how I'm feeling. That's not how children work. Whereas, like you say, teenagers, that's a whole different game. They're not as engaging as younger children are. So that's just a whole nother ball of wax. But one of the things I run into and I speak to people about, because again, looking at things from the eyes of children, a lot of times when you're in contentious court situations, custody situations, a guardian ad litem or a judge are like, oh, well, we're going to talk to the children and see what they want. And I'm like, you don't have to talk to them. I can tell you for a fact what they want. They want mom and dad to get along.
Yep.
They want
Yep.
mom and dad, like you were saying, to be cordial with one another and getting along. They want
Yep.
mom and dad to be flexible, right? If something pops up and yeah, okay, you can go to so-and-so's house, right?
Mhm.
They don't want negotiations and all these other things bleeding down on them. They don't want to feel as though they're responsible for whatever tensions that are existing between mom and dad. Like all of
Yep.
these things that you said, they own things. And parents gotta, you can understand that about them just out of the gates. They feel responsible at the outset for the separation a lot of the times.
Mhm.
And if parents are not getting along, then they feel as though they're the reason why they're not getting along. So, like you said, it's a shared responsibility, and you need to put them first and think about them first and foremost, and then work in partnership.
Yes.
Like you were saying, as a business and a
Yep.
partnership on behalf of that shared interest. So,
Exactly. And parents, they're like, well, if communication was your issue when you were together, it's not necessarily going to get better. In some situations, it does get better because sometimes you're better when you're not together.
right.
But usually most situations, it's not going to get better. So you need to figure out what works for you. If you guys cannot speak on a phone without being at each other's throats, obviously you shouldn't be talking on the phone at any point in time. If you guys communicate better via text or via email, then do that. If one parent is like, oh, I want to talk on the phone, and the other one doesn't want to talk on the phone, then you need to come to a happy medium. You need to figure something out. Be like, if it's certain circumstances, certain situations, I would like to talk about this on the phone. Everything else can be via text. Happy mediums. Compromising. Compromising. You got to work on compromising. Not everything can be your way. It's
Going back
not
to parallel parenting, asymmetric communication. That's what you're talking about. Where
yes.
it is right, because it gives you time to think before you respond, and a
Yeah.
lot of times that's key to the whole thing. Yes, absolutely.
And kids, as they're dealing with the change, but recognize within yourself what you're struggling with. It's a change for you too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Identify within yourself. A lot of times people don't take ownership because they don't like the way it makes them feel. Your life is a lesson. Not trying to sound like a fortune cookie here, but life is a lesson. Everything you do, good, bad, small, big, it should be taken as a lesson. And it took me a long time to come to that point in my life. I take everything as a lesson in my life, whether it's stuff with working, with our family, um, driving the car, going to the grocery store, whatever it may be, it's a lesson. I go to the grocery store, man, I cannot stand when people talk to me when I'm in the grocery store. Okay. So you don't like when people talk to you in the grocery store? What have you learned about yourself? That you don't like that? So what can you do to change that? I can wear headphones when I go to the grocery store. Boom, fixed. Like, like little, everything can be a lesson. And when you avoid owning up to yourself, owning up things that what your contributions are to an issue, you're not growing as a person. Every lesson that you learn helps you grow as a person in any way, shape, or form. I try to learn something every single day so that I am bettering myself. I am not perfect. I can always learn. I'm not the type person that doesn't own up to their mistakes. Like, I will say, you know what, no matter how uncomfortable it makes me feel, I'm going to own up, I'm sorry, I was wrong, or I didn't do that. Because if I don't, I'm not learning the lesson. And if I'm not learning the lesson, then I'm not growing. And then I'm just standing still. I want to grow. I want to grow and be better for my family. I want to grow and be better for myself. And how do I do that? By learning from all the different things that I interact with and do during the day. And sometimes that has to do with identifying things within yourself. And it takes time to do that. Sometimes people are like, oh no, when I got divorced, I was so happy. I couldn't wait. I'm so happy now. And then sometimes 2 months later, you realize, you know what? I'm not as happy. There are things that I miss. There are things that I miss about my family all being in the same household. There are things that I miss about my spouse. Owning that, learning, knowing that about yourself. Okay, I miss those things. Once you've owned that and learned that about yourself, what can I do to fill that void? What can I do to fix that? What can I do? Okay, I miss, uh, I miss when we all used to cook meals as a family. Okay, look at what you and your son do, or you and your daughter do. When's the last time you guys cooked together or baked together? Oh, we haven't done that since we got divorced. Boom, do it. You miss it. Your significant other may not be there, or or the husband or the ex is not, like, whatever ex and be is not there anymore, but you can still enjoy those memories and create new ones that you enjoyed with the kids. And so dealing with change affects everybody. And I bring that up because change happens every day that you deal with. And some people deal with change better than others. And that's one of the things that's addressed in the book, which I made up an acronym. It's called READ. And no matter if you're an adult or a child, an adult talking to an adult, a child talking to a child, the READ acronym works really well, because handling a situation, it starts off with first steps when you're having a conversation with somebody, dealing with a change in your life that was with someone else. Respect each other. If you're coming to a conversation and you cannot speak respectfully to that person, then you're not ready to talk. Hey, I need 10 minutes. Hey, let's talk about this tomorrow. I'm not in the right headspace to have this conversation, so that you guys can actually hear. It's a lot easier to listen to someone talk about an issue they have with you when they're speaking to you like a human being, than to have someone yelling at you and talking about and attacking you about all the things they feel you do wrong. So
So
the
there's your read. I put it up there for you.
yes. So expressing your feelings, telling, like, men, I'm gonna say this again, women are a lot more emotional. We talk about our feelings. Men, when it comes to your family, suck it up. Talk about how you're feeling. Not saying you have to talk about, oh, I'm sad, oh, I'm mad. No, if you're bothered by something, hey, it really, if your significant other is late for pickup, hey, or late for pickup or late for drop off on transition day, it really bothers me when you're late because it affects things that I'm doing during the day. Is there any way that we can figure out a way for you to be on time? Would it be and then you got to think about, how can you be flexible to help the situation? Hey, do we need to shift the transition time 30 minutes? Will that help you? Being flexible within yourself. figuring out those things. Then your next thing is ask questions. Asking questions is helpful because too many times people make assumptions and then they react based on those assumptions. Taking somebody to, you child in football, which I believe is something to be discussed with both parents because of the contact sport, safety can be a concern in that situation. Say you want to sign up your child up for Pee Wee football. They're 5 years old, 6 years old. Your significant other doesn't really like it. They would, well, I want to sign them up. I'm going to sign them up. And they sign them up and they don't talk. Oh, I assume that you signed. I assumed because I told you that I didn't want you that you weren't going to do it. That's an assumption. And then I got mad. And then you get mad at them and everything is angry. And you're mad the whole season, whole football season, not saying anything or communicating. Well, I didn't know that they were signed up. And then you find out later on, well, I assumed you didn't sign them up because I told you that I didn't want you to do that. That's your fault. You should have asked. But also on the other end, there should have been communication there. Hey, I know that you stated this, but I did sign them up for it. The games are this days, allowing them to come. Allow them to come to the games, or, compromise. What about, I would like him to be in football, but how about we wait 2 more years? Okay. And you shouldn't be doing this in front of the child either. Being like, hey, bud, we're going to sign you up for football. Putting that on the spot before you even talked in certain situations, before you talk to the other, because again, safety is a concern there. And then it makes the other person look bad because it's like, well, you've already told them about it. So, addressing that, ask questions, assumptions you do that naturally through life, but when you make assumptions and then you react based on those assumptions, it could turn a thing way bigger than it needed to be. Ask the question. Just ask. Worst case scenario, you hear an answer you don't want to hear, but at least you know where you stand or you know where that person's mindset is. And, with assumptions, people have expectations. You can't set expectations for other people. You can only set expectations for yourself. Well, other adults. You can set expectations for your child, but that's different. They're your children. And then D is discuss your concerns. You're discussing, just tell them how it makes as you go through, let them know what's bothering you. I don't like this, and then that gives them a chance to explain why they're doing it or how they're doing it. And then you discuss, okay, I understand that this is why this is happening, but it bothers me because blah, 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 blah. I don't think if your reasoning are all personal and it has nothing to do with the child, you're going to have to figure out something within yourself because at the end of the day, they can do what they want during their time. And this goes to that parallel parenting. Sometimes it might work better, during parallel parenting basis, you do what's best, what you think is best for the child when they're in your care and vice versa. So when you use the READ acronym, it really does help because with children and with adults, because starting off, coming to the conversation, if you come at somebody in a conversation angry, I need to talk to you about something. You really pissed me off when you did it. I'm already trying to tune you out because you're attacking me. But I can hear you a lot better if you say, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this situation. It really upset me, or you can say pissed off, whatever. It really pissed me off. It's all about your tone. Come to the conversation with respect. If you don't want somebody coming at you in that conversation that way, then it's the same thing. Then you need to be doing the same thing that you would like to have reciprocated to you. So I think that if people utilize the READ acronym in their household, working with change, they can handle things a lot better and can be more productive. And you're also teaching your children those tools at a young age so that they can communicate, use their words. Sorry. you can use teaching them to use their words so that they communicate. Because at the end of the day, whatever they see in their daily life between you and your ex, or you at your house, they're at their house, that is what they are potentially going to show when they grow up. That's what they're going to think is normal. That's what they're going to show. So if you, as terrible as this is, if you talk disrespectful, talk down to your significant other, then they are going to be like, oh, this is normal. This is how you're supposed to respond. This is how you're supposed to act to your significant other. You are paving the way for their life, for what they're going to do in their life. When if you are responding to your child, like if your children ever get divorced, do you want them to go through what you're going through? Do you want them to deal with and listen to how you're being? Do you want them to have that? If you don't, then you need to change and work on you. You need to fix what's in yourself. Whenever you're having a conversation, I think it should be about the kids. Like, I feel this way because I think, your child, whatever. And then at times, invite your child in to be part of the conversation if it's appropriate. Hey, buddy, something, we use the example of football. Obviously, 5 years old is way too young to be asking their opinion when it comes to that. But if they're like 9 and 10 years old, hey, buddy, I know you expressed to me about how you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. Why do you want to do this? Can you help us understand why you want to do it? Say it's something like mixed martial arts they want to start doing, and you're like, oh, I'm worried. Talk to them about why they want to do it. Hear their side. Because again, it is about them. If they're just saying, oh, I want to do it because I want to be able to fight people and I want to be able to beat people up. And, when I'm out and about, make sure their intentions are good. Then there's something you need to talk about. But it helps to talk to your kids, all three of you, or however many kids you guys have together, whatever the situation may be, talk with them. Once you two have talked, but make sure if it's something that your child told you, hey, I don't want to talk about it I don't want to tell mom, or I don't want to tell dad, don't blindside them. Don't blindside them and be like, hey, bud, I talked to your mom. Tell them, it's like, hey, buddy, I know that you didn't want to tell this to your mom, or you didn't want to tell this to dad, but I think it's very important that we do. And we are going to need to do that. And I have no problem being there with you when you talk to them. I can sit there with you. We all can have this conversation together. Or if you would like, I can have the conversation with dad first, or I can talk to mom first, and then you can come in and we all can have the conversation together. Because if you do it behind their back, you're just betraying their trust and they feel like they can't talk to you. So being mindful of that is very important as well.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm glad we were able to get a little segment on the READS acronym. That's useful. That's always helpful for people. And I can tell you this for sure. You certainly have more than one book in you, Zoie.
Yes, I do. Many, many books. Yes.
You put a lot you have a lot in your mind about things, and you have a lot to say about things. So, but it's all very important because this whole thing, separated families, it could be so difficult for children. It could be so challenging for them. And like we both established, we lose sight of them because we're focusing on the parents. So I thank you for doing your book. I'm anxious to see what else you put out, and let us know. And, maybe we can talk about those as you bring them out too.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get the video to Jasmine, who does our social media. If you want to shoot me an email with your link to where your book is, and maybe any other social media that you want to be put into things that we put out. When we get the video done, we'll share it with you. And then when we're putting it out on our social media, we'll include the links to all of those things for you too. So
perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you letting me talk about my book, and you had really great questions too. So I appreciate it. I really do hope that, this can book can be helpful to many different families. And I hope that anybody that's dealing with divorce, or anybody that is dealing with separation, that you know that they that they really look at themselves and figure out how they can best make this work for their kids, and make it about them and not make it about themselves, because that's what's most important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the bottom line, Zoe. All right, ma'am. Well, it was good speaking with you. And again, let us know when you got something else coming out. Maybe we can do it again.
Absolutely. I will definitely let you know. The next book should be coming out in the winter of this year, the next Luckiest Child. So I will keep you guys in the loop for sure.
All right. Give Little Bear a big hug tonight. Okay.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.